I feel like before I make this video, I need to make a statement for everyone out there. I do not care about politics. I don't care about red or blue or anything like that. In this video, I'm going to be going over a ton of information, and I will make you guys have your own assumption on what's happening here. But one thing that is very clear is it feels as if we have been getting played this entire time. I'm going to go over a lot of things. Again, I don't care about what political party you support. I don't, tell you guys what political party I support. In fact, I really don't support politics at all. I think that it is, just a control mechanism to divide the nation 50-50, or at least, for the most part, that's the gist of it, right? So I don't really care for politics. I don't support politics. I think that a lot of it is just nonsense anyways. A lot of it is just noise, just to stir up, drama and shock and things like that. But the main thing that I'm looking at with what's happening here isn't so much about political parties or anything like that. It's about the connections within crypto. Throughout the last 12 months, it's a little bit over 12 months now, but we've been hearing a lot of open promises about what this admin's going to be doing with crypto. And, for the most part, it definitely did provide a ton of, buying FOMO, essentially. A lot of people were buying Bitcoin and crypto around roughly like December and even November of 2024 in the hopes that we would have a, crypto strategic reserve, and, we're going to make crypto the capital of the world, this, that, whatever in the US. And, it feels as though since then, a lot of that, hype and speculation and, just any sort of, facts around that kind of died down. Now, looking at the market cap of crypto right now, $2.37 trillion. Again, we're heavily down. We're back to levels that we haven't seen since going all the way back to around roughly November of 2024. And fear and greed still around 10. I mean, we're starting to bounce slightly on Bitcoin. But the main thing that I want to really focus on in this video isn't so much price action, because obviously, price action, it's around the same spot. The weekly close was pretty decent, I will say. We did end up closing right around like 70K. This is actually pretty good. We closed around the highs going all the way back to July and even June and May of 2024. So, pretty good close. We'll have to see what happens during this month, but, not too bad of a close with our last previous weekly close. And then also with the monthly close, we did have a close around like 78.5K. This month, it's looking a little bit more grim, but we'll have to watch what happens here. But the main focus in this video is Binance. I want to actually focus on Binance, and I also want to focus on Trump, because there's a few things that are happening here that I find very, very interesting. So let's look at Binance. I mean, Binance is the largest exchange in this space. If you guys don't know, Binance has been a very large name around this space for a very long time. Now, during FTX imploding, there was a lot of talks between CZ and also SBF on X. And a lot of people were saying that, these two were going, back and forth with competition in this space, and that possibly CZ was responsible for SBF getting liquidated completely and everything imploding. I don't believe that that was the case. I think that FTX was operating in a very shady way. We talked about it, right? SBF was getting the green light from the SEC with Gary Gensler, and everyone was like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening here? There was also a lot of donations from SBF to political parties. But the main thing that we're looking at here is that, yes, I mean, if we're going off of FTX and if we're going off of what happened during that time, there was definitely some payoffs happening around the political parties with SBF. Now, today, we look at Binance, because Binance is a massive name in the space. They are the largest crypto exchange in this space as well. They've held that title for quite some time. And if we're looking at what assets that they hold here, and we have all of their assets on chain that we can track. We could track every single one of the assets that they hold on their exchange. We have here USD1, which, if you guys do know, yes, that's the stablecoin from World Liberty Financial. If we're going to USD1 and we're looking at the total supply, right? Total supply about 5.36 billion. Binance is holding over 800 $628 million, almost 830 million USD1. Now that's just in one wallet. In another wallet, they hold 600 and almost 66 million as well. Now, if you're continuing down the list, and if you click load more, another 400 million here. If you keep scrolling down, I'm sure that you could find some more. 197 million. So, and by the way, here's another 147 million, and the list continues on. Now, what's interesting about this, right, is this is a new report coming out regarding that Binance holds around 87% of USD1 in circulation, Trump family stablecoin, marking the highest concentration of any major stablecoin at a single exchange. This is from Forbes. This is very interesting because, again, when we think about what's happening here, we could start to really unravel the big story. Okay, I made a joke post on X, but it really isn't a joke post. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we've been promised a lot of things around crypto. I said, we tell them we want to make the US the crypto capital of the world. Then we launch multiple meme coins, rugging them. Then we say that we will make a Bitcoin strategic reserve and rug them again. Then we wipe liquidity and crash it all. Now, again, like I said, there's definitely, some jokes within this, but it is also what kind of feels as though has been the story all along. We've been promised a lot, but every single time that, these things come up in question, it feels like they are just completely avoiding the question. Now, with this recent report with, USD1, we go over here. Justin, Binance reportedly holds 87% of Trump World, this is World Liberty Financial One stablecoin. Per Forbes, Binance holds approximately 87% of all USD1 in circulation, roughly 4.7 billion of the 5.4 billion total supply of USD1. The highest concentration at any third-party exchange among the top 10 stablecoins. A Trump-affiliated LLC owns about 38% of World Liberty Financial, which stands to profit from its stablecoin by investing the dollars backing USD1 in assets like US Treasuries. The founder of Binance, CZ, was pardoned by Trump less than a year ago. So a lot of people are starting to speculate on why CZ was pardoned and if this all has to do with Trump's World Liberty Financial. Because again, a Trump-affiliated LLC owns 38% of this. So they're wondering, and they're trying to connect the dots here on if there's some sort of fraud happening here. And if there was some sort of payment, if you will, for this pardon. Now we go over here and we have question. When Binance founder Zhao pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws and was sent to prison, Binance injected billions into Trump's family business and Zhao received a pardon. Is that a conflict of interest? Basent said, I'm unfamiliar with any of that. Check this out.
Would you agree that money laundering is a national security threat to this country?
Yes, sir.
Now, with Binance founder Zhao pleaded guilty to violating anti-money laundering laws and was sent to prison, Binance then injected billions of dollars into Trump's family business, World Liberty Financial, and Zhao asked for a pardon and received that. I just wanted to ask you, is that a conflict of interest in your opinion?
I am unfamiliar with any of that. I wear many hats. The pardon hat is not one of them.
I'm just asking, do you see it as a conflict of interest, though?
I'm not going to respond to that.
Would you agree that?
So a lot of people are now saying that this is inaccurate. However, if we think about what's been happening here, we go back to May of 2025. There was a $2 billion deal between Binance and also a UAE-backed firm, MGX, that was conducting a transaction with USD1. Which is also why, when we think about Binance holding 87% of the supply, you can kind of start to see the big picture here. But also, what's even more interesting is that there has been reports regarding $500 million being poured into World Liberty Financial from major UAE backers, which gave them a 49% stake in that venture. Now, we already know that Binance is still heavily close to World Liberty Financial, considering the fact that they do hold 87% of the supply. And we just went over it. I mean, this is reported from Binance. These are Binance's financial reserves. You could track this all on chain. Now, on top of this, well, we go over here. Donald Trump doesn't even know who CZ is. When asked about why he pardoned the founder of Binance, Trump calls Zhao the crypto person because he couldn't even recall his name. So why was he pardoned? The official narrative around the pardon collapses under basic scrutiny. Zhao was not pardoned because of demonstrable innocence, new evidence, or compelling humanitarian grounds. He had already served his sentence and paid a record-setting corporate fine. What did happen in the timeline is far more revealing. Several months before Zhao's legal team formally petitioned for a presidential pardon, Binance, the exchange Zhao founded and long controlled, quietly directed $2 billion into World Liberty Financial. And that's, again, that transaction I just recently talked about. The Trump family-backed DeFi protocol co-founded by Donald Trump himself. Now, the sequence is stark. Massive capital flows from Binance to a Trump family venture. No public explanation tying the investment to clemency considerations. A pardon granted shortly after the formal request. The president who granted it unable to name the man he just pardoned. When billion-dollar investments and presidential pardons line up this neatly, it stops being a coincidence and starts looking like a receipt. Now, again, does this confirm all of this is true? Not exactly. However, I will say it is very interesting to see this all unfold. And we do have, the facts on chain. Like, we could track all of this on chain. But check this out.
You pardoned the founder of Binance. Can you explain why you chose to pardon him? And did it have anything to do with his involvement in your family's?
Who is that?
The founder of Binance. He has a involvement in your own family's crypto business.
The talking about the crypto person.
Would you pardon him?
Okay, are you ready? I don't know who he is. I know he got a 4-month sentence or something like that.
Now, with Binance founder Zhao.
And of course, yes, this is that, quote from Scott Bessent that I just played. But yeah, apparently he doesn't really know who this guy is.
Talking about the crypto person. Are you ready? I don't know who he is.
So he doesn't know who CZ is. However, he got a pardon, and we're seeing all of this massive capital flowing into World Liberty Financial. Again, this is, a DeFi protocol co-founded by Trump himself. Why doesn't he know who he is? But then we also go back to the whole idea that, Binance has been manipulating this market. We have over here from Crypto Wizard, we will buy 1 billion Bitcoin, but first we need to nuke it further down. Binance Crime Exchange sends its regards. And here we have, and let me open this up. I mean, this is actually kind of insane. Again, this is when Bitcoin is sub 90K. We have here from Binance on January 30th, an open letter to the crypto community during periods of market volatility and pressure. The impact felt across the industry is naturally also felt by Binance. As a global industry leader, we hold ourselves to elevated standards and continually improve based on feedback from, and of course, the community. So this is when they announced that they are going to be investing in the Seifu funds. Yeah, that's when Bitcoin started to collapse even more down to sub 80K. Now, today, we know that Binance has been utilizing the Seifu fund. They bought another 4,225 Bitcoin worth about almost $300 million, bringing its total purchase to about 10.4K Bitcoin, roughly over $730 million. Now, again, when did they start buying? Well, they started buying just about a week ago. Now, if we're looking at, Bitcoin, let's go back to Bitcoin real quick, and let's go back to the 1 week view of, Bitcoin. So, well, actually, let's just go over this last 7 days, okay? So they start buying Bitcoin over the last 7 days. Here we have it. When Bitcoin is under 80K. Here's when they announce, here's the 30th. Here's where they started an announcement regarding, oh, hey, we're going to be buying 1 billion. And then it starts dropping. It's almost like they always know when the perfect time to buy is. And, oh, yeah, that's right, because Binance was one of the largest players here in terms of outflows. Let's also not forget that we go back to October 10th, commingling and diverting funds. Binance and its poor financial controls meant that customer funds were diverted, including potentially for personal uses, the suit said. This was the original suit against CZ, by the way. Merit Peak Limited, a market maker previously tied to Zhao, had access to billions of US dollars of customer funds, while Sigma Chain, another CZ-controlled entity, received nearly $200 million from BAM Trading and a BAM Trading custody account. The SEC alleged CZ himself allegedly personally received $62.5 million from one of the Binance bank accounts between October 2022 and January 2023. Sigma Chain also bought a yacht for $11 million from the account that had access to customer funds. This is all customer funds with Binance. And the reason why I bring this up is because we go over here. This is from Cowboy as well. CZ tells people he doesn't trade. That's because he doesn't have to. He owns the market makers that do the trading for him. Merit Peak and Sigma Chain, both owned by CZ. They have been documented moving billions of dollars of his personal money. These firms were, given privileged access to non-public data inside Binance's black box, information unavailable to regular users or even most insiders. That access created a structural massive informational advantage. With that edge, they reportedly engaged in large-scale wash trading. And by the way, Binance was, under scrutinization for all of these. Actively traded against Binance users. Again, I've always said that decentralized exchanges, they are, they see every single position transparently, and they could trade against them. Contributed to liquidations through aggressive positioning, helped inflate reported trading volume. This isn't speculation about CZ trading spot. This is about the owner of the exchange controlling opaque market maker or making entities that directly profit from and in many cases trade against the same retail and institutional users on his platform. Binance is not a neutral venue. Users are systemically disadvantaged by the people who own the house. When the exchange owner also owns the biggest liquidity providers with insider level data access, not trading becomes a distinction without a difference. He doesn't need to trade. His companies do it with his money, his data advantage, and his platform. You don't hate CZ and Binance enough because you simply don't know enough. And by the way, here we also have the entire breakdown regarding Binance. So yeah, I mean, when we look at all of the management companies here and also the market makers, and then you look at the actual breakdown from court documents, it's showing you clearly, transparently, that there is fraud happening here. So when we go back to the whole idea of like October 10th, okay, like why wasn't Binance buying all during this entire time? Why wasn't Binance buying back in November after we crashed? What, did they know that another crash was coming? Because apparently they had to. I mean, it's just insane to me. But then we go back to the whole idea of the pardon. Why was CZ pardoned? And then you look at the facts here. Yeah, there's billions of dollars worth of, major deals happening here with World Liberty Financial. And now we get the update that Binance holds 87% of a stablecoin. That is unheard of in this space. I mean, think about it like this, right? Tether has been around for years and years and years. When it comes back to USDT, right? Binance holds 26% of their allocation to Tether. Their largest Tether holding here is about 20 billion. They hold about 26 billion. If we're, just adding this, I'm just going to round it up to 26. And then, we have a little bit more down here, about 1 billion. So 27, we'll just say, 28 and a half. So 29. So about like roughly over 30 billion Tether. Okay. So they hold about 30 billion Tether. Okay. Tether's full supply here is about 190, almost 2 billion. So they hold 30 billion Tether. That's it. They don't hold 20%, 30%, 40% of the supply. But World Liberty One, they hold 87% of the supply. I find that very, very interesting because, I mean, even with the Tether holdings, I mean, they technically hold about like 15 or so percent of all Tether in circulation. I mean, that's not a crazy amount, especially when we think about how much, like Coinbase holds or any of these other exchanges, because again, a lot of these exchanges do hold a decent amount of, these reserves, which by the way, if you wanted to look at the audits of like Coinbase, you guys can, they do have full audits, but I find it very interesting that this pardon came out, just recently after back in May, there's a $2 billion deal. It's the same deal that Cowboy is regarding here, where a lot of big names, were able to get a massive stake in this crypto business. Again, maybe that's just me looking at this from, the perspective of like what's been happening with the timeline. Again, we can't prove any of this. But we could just go over the facts, and the facts are definitely interesting to follow, especially if, you don't know who this guy is at all. but there's billion-dollar deals being made with, Binance and World Liberty Financial. I mean, you would have to know who the founder is of Binance, would you not? I don't know. Sounds crazy, but who knows what's really happening here. But one thing is clear is that Binance is definitely also a very shitty exchange. I don't trust any of these centralized exchanges at all in this space. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.